gotta make sure that everything is ready. Okay, I feel like... Yeah, we're good to go. What the... Ay! Oh, is that how you want to play? Alright, well, eat this then, pendejo. Anyway, hello and welcome to the first ever Dead by Daylight video. Why am I doing this? Who knows? Because I absolutely hate myself. We're gonna be making a video on a game that actually makes me want to bash my head against the wall. But why do I keep playing? That's a good question. Do I have an answer for that question? No, I don't. But nonetheless, can you stop fucking throwing hatches at me, thank you? Look that way, thank you. Okay. Anyway, welcome to the first ever video. On Dead by Daylight, of course. Who exactly are we going to be talking about? Well, today we're going to be talking about a killer that I am so horrible at that I might as well just uninstall the game and never come back. And that is the Huntress, aka Anna. Now, before we get to talk about her abilities and her perks, let's talk about her base statistics, shall we? Her base stats is that she's a 4.4% meter per second killer, or 110%, meaning she's a much more slower killer than the rest. And she has a terror radius of 20 meters. Now that might sound good, but that's not exactly well, it's not exactly game changer because she has a lullaby that anyone can hear within a 40-meter radius. You won't be able to hear. Well, it's not like map-wise, so you can't just like hear it on the other side of the map. As long as she's within 40 meters with you, anyone within that radius can hear it, and there's no other way to reduce it. But as soon as you start hearing the heartbeat, then that she's close. And now, because she's a big fucking Russian woman, I mean, good fucking lord, like, look at this. Like, this is clearly a Russian woman built to rip everyone's flesh without having any issues. This woman can probably lift a log with one finger and just act like it's nothing. And because she's Russian, she's a very fucking tall person. Meaning whenever you're looping her, you can pretty much tell where the fuck she's going. I mean, it just kind of depends on which headgear she has. She either has a very tiny ass little head, or something abnormal like this. So be wise with what headgear you choose, because sure, it makes you look pretty, or in another way, the most horrid fucking thing in existence, but the people will be able to see you in the distance, or behind walls very easily. But nonetheless, what is exactly her ability? Well, her ability are the hunting hatches that her mother taught. How did she learn this? I have no fucking clue. I'm not gonna question it. So essentially, these are just throwing hatchets, pretty much. You just toss these shits around. But there is a there's a catch to this. You don't just like instantly chuck that motherfucker. No, this is not Call of Duty. We're not talking about that. She has to draw it out and then toss it. But the only thing is, the problem about the HUD hatches is that, sure, they're very powerful. It is sort of slow without any sort of add-ons or if you don't charge it. And the hitbox of the hatchet can be quite annoying, in a way at least. And so, there are like certain times where even the most tiniest objects, a fucking tin can, is enough to stop a hatchet. So be aware, even the most tiniest object is enough to stop it. But is this power any good? Yes, it's probably one of the most powerful abilities in the game. Well, not the most overpowered, but it's one definitely up there. And the Huntress is one of the first ever killers to be a ranged killer. And because of her slower movement speed, it's kind of hard for her to catch up to survivors. Unless they have a mate for this and hope together, then yeah, good fucking luck catching them. You're not going to be catching them anytime soon. But nonetheless, how should you be playing her? Well, it's kind of a difficult question to really answer, because I suck at Huntress. Even though I have so many hours in this game, I completely suck at Huntress. I am completely horrible at her. And the thing is about her is, like, there's not really much else to talk about, like, how to play her, except, like, predict the survivor's movement is all I'm saying, because although it sounds easier said than done, it's really hard to explain how to play well with her, because she's a projectile killer and survivors can just like dodge it. But all I can say is like try your best to like understand the survivor's movement is all I'm saying. And any sort of aura reading or like outline or abilities or like add-on perks or add-ons that provide you bonus like aura reading or outline reading abilities, they're good on her, so, because you can easily like predict her movement. But another thing that you should know is like you need to get better with her, as you're really saying. Despite her power being very simple and very easy to use, it has a very high skill cap because you have to sort of understand the survivor's movement and the way they move. I can't really give a very good description or like a very good explanation of how to get better with her, but all I can say is like just keep playing her. Is all I'm saying. Even if you suck like me, just keep playing her and you might get better. A YouTuber that I highly recommend on checking out, that is a Huntress player, probably one of the best Huntress players I've ever seen, is Coconut RTS. I think I might have butchered the name. But nonetheless, he's probably one of the best Huntress players I've ever seen in my life. He's fucking insane. And so, like, playing her can be very difficult and very challenging because of the skill gap, because her projectile doesn't really move fast without any add-ons, unless you don't charge it. But how can you tell if the hatchet is fully charged? Well, there will be like a shining sound, like a visual effect on the hatchet, indicating that the hatchet is fully charged. And so, but the best way to like use her as in chase is like, if you know a survivor is about to like vault a window or like about to drop a pallet, then that's where you should whip out your hatchet and then toss it over. But make sure you aim it slightly higher so you don't either hit a wall or the ground accidentally, which happens to me quite often. And so, I'm very sorry if I cannot give out a proper explanation how to get better with her. It's just kind of like you have to like learn it yourself, pretty much. But nonetheless, let's talk about the add-ons she brings in. The yellow cloth just increases the hatchet's throw speed. Basically, it just goes faster. The core stone, hitting a target just makes their grunts of pain a bit louder until they're healed. The badget half that decreases the hatchet throw cooldown by 10%, so once you throw the hatchet, you instantly will be able to perform an M1, basically. Or throw another one. The Amanita Toxin is not exactly great, but it just inflicts them with the blindness status effect, meaning that they cannot see any outlines or auras, basically. And the weighted hatchet, it just provides a incapacitated. Basically, they can't do anything for 10 seconds. And I could be wrong about this, but having the incapacitated effect means that the survivors won't be able to escape through the exit gates. I could be very wrong about that, but it's still kind of nice to have, at least. The shiny pen just practically allows you to move faster while having the hatchet. It just pretty much allows you to catch up with the survivors a little bit easier. And then the oak haft is just pretty much the better version of the bandage haft, or the bandage grip, I forgot what it was called. The mana grass braid, it basically decreases the time it takes to wind up your hatchet, meaning you will be able to draw it out much more quicker. Alerted Loot just practically allows you to carry another extra hatchet. The Venomous Concussion is a very powerful add-on that makes it so survivors hit with the hatchets are exhausted for 5 seconds. Now this doesn't really sound like much, but trust me, there are like certain situations where it will help you a lot. The Rusty Head just inflicts it with the Mangled, meaning that it will take longer for them to heal. The Rose Root just practically makes your hatchets go faster. And then the Flower Babushka just basically increases the time it takes to whip out your hatchets again. The Deerskin Gloves just makes you reload hatchets faster. Oh yeah, another thing I forgot to mention, I'm a fucking idiot, I am very sorry, is that once you're out of hatchets, auras of lockers are revealed to you in a specific distance. I don't know what the exact number is, but it just lets you know when there are nearby lockers. And you have to go and reload, go and grab a hatchet. You don't need to like grab one hatchet at a time from a locker, it just instantly refills all of the hatchets. So having this during a chase, it helps you a lot, so you can continue to pursue your prey. The Wooden Fox grants an undetectable status effect for 30 seconds after reloading, meaning you won't be able to be spotted by survivors' aura reading perks, and your terror radius and red stain is completely gone. Now this doesn't really seem a lot, but imagine in this scenario, right? Since you have a very large humming radius, the survivors won't be able to tell if you're very close. And even in chase, while your red stain is gone, they won't be able to tell where you're exactly coming from. So this is niche to have. The infantry pile just practically allows you to carry extra hatchets, and if I am not mistaken, these two stacks together, meaning you can have 8 hatchets. The Glowing Concussion just reveals the survivor's aura after hitting them with a hatchet for 5 seconds, so you can kind of predict their movement of where they're going to go. The Begrimmed Hedges applies both the hemorrhage and mangled effect, meaning it takes longer for them to heal, and they leave pools of blood much more quicker, and if they stop healing, any progress they made on healing will be completely stopped, or will regress slowly. The Soldier's Potato is an interesting add-on because it turns her into 115% movement speed, or 4.6 meters, when she has no hatches. Basically trapper movement speed. This is nice to have, I guess, but just kind of depends on your situation. If you have an injured survivor and you're out of hatchets, but you can catch up, then yes, this add-on might help a little bit, but don't rely on this too much exactly, because Huntress without her hatches is just a basic killer. You need your hatches at all costs. And so, the Iridescent Head is the most powerful fucking add-on in the game, but I would not suggest using this if you're terrible at her like me. But I did use this nonetheless. So what this essentially does is it immediately puts a healthy survivor into the dying state. So no matter, even if they're healed, you're just gonna put them on the fucking ground instantly, just bonk. This thing is so powerful enough, it's so powerful to the point where if you get hit by this, you'll be sent to another fucking dimension. That's how hard this thing hits, pretty much. Like, even the description says it cuts through flesh and soul. So you're pretty much going to be an emotional piece of shit once you get hit by this. But the downside is about this add-on is that she only has one hatchet. And even if you bring the infantry belt or the leather loop, you will always be stuck with one hatchet. So always be careful with it. And so, what type of perks does she bring? Well, her perks are not exactly great. They're probably one of the worst, in my opinion, except for one. Territorial Imperatives just practically allows you to see survivors that enter the basement if you're further than 24 meters. It's not exactly great, or unless you're planning to do like a basement-only challenge or something. But other than that, this perk is not exactly great. Beast of Prey is it's probably one of the worst ones, in my opinion at least. It practically, whenever you get the Bloodlust, Tier 1 Bloodlust, it grants you the Undetectable status effect. But it's not exactly great, because why would you need this? You lose this undetectable status effect once you lose the survivor. But you also gain extra 50% blood points in the hunter category. But does that really matter? No. It's like, what's the point of having undetectable when you're in chase? Just bring in the wooden fox and that's pretty much it. You don't really need that. But nonetheless, this perk is not exactly great. Hunter's Lullaby is an interesting perk, to say at least. It's a hex perk, meaning any sort of dull totem is a hex perk. And so what this essentially does is every time you hook a survivor, if the time between the skill check comes out is delayed, meaning the skill check will appear, but the sound of the skill check that it's about to come up is delayed. So it's going to leave survivors at a surprise. Now, experienced survivors won't have any problems with this, but combine this with Doctor, with like any sort of like perks that reduces the skill check zones, is going to be pretty good. And any time a survivor messes up a skill check on healing or repairing, it takes an extra 6% regression penalty. And at 5 stacks, there's no skill check warning, so it's pretty much silent, so the survivors have to be more careful of it. And so, that's pretty much it about the Huntress. She's a very simple killer, but with a very high skill gap. And if you master her, she's indeed a very powerful killer, but the only downside about her is the fact that she is a slower killer. So patrolling the map can be very difficult because of her slower movement speed. But what about facing against her? Well, it's another story pretty much, because the same thing, you have to sort of predict the Huntress's movement. It's like, move in a zigzag whenever she's like about to throw a hatchet if you're like in an open area or you're like kind of cornered. It's like, try your best to like make your movements unpredictable, like in a zigzag around, or just like try to like run left and right or whatever. In maps that have like a lot of walls and a lot of like objects laid around, use those as your cover pretty much. Even if there's not much pallets, use cover as like force her to like catch up to her, or like make her not to throw a hatchet at you, because like I said, the Huntress's hatchet has a very big hitbox, and Even the most tiniest shit is enough to stop it. I don't know how or why it works, but nonetheless. It's like, it's kind of hard to like, give a proper explanation of how to like counter her pretty much, but don't be predictable is all I can say so far. You can preach up pallets much more quicker, so you don't get hit when you throw a pallet. But like, when should you be throwing a pallet or like vault a window? Well, it's kind of hard to say because she can appear out of the corner at any point and throw a hatchet when you're stuck in an animation. So it's kind of for you to best know when to vault over or throw a pallet. But best off it's just like pre-drop pallets whenever you can, or just like vault windows as quick as possible with when she's not in your line of sight. But also be careful because a lot of Huntress players that I have faced against love to like do a lot of mind games or like hide her red stain. It's like they love to make it as much as mind game as possible, so be careful about that. There's really not much to say about her other than that she's a very powerful killer if it's on the right person's hands. She can end the game very quick. But what about slugging? Is she good at slugging? Yes, she's very powerful. As a matter of fact, she's probably one of the best sluggers in the game, although I could be very wrong about that. And let's talk about her Mori animation. It is very fucking brutal. She just says, "Let me ask you a question." Wow, that joke was fucking horrible. Yay. But she's a very powerful killer, and her Mori is absolutely phenomenal. I love it. She just goes in without any sort of second thought. But yeah, that's pretty much it to talk about her, honestly. There's really not much else to say about her, other than that her design is also very interesting. She has a lot of good customizable cosmetics. And that's pretty much it. There's not much else to talk about, honestly. Anyway, on which killer am I going to be making a video on? Well, I'll most likely make a video about either the Wraith, or on Michael Myers, or the Knight, one of my favorite killers. And yes, I know the Knight may not seem may seem like a boring killer, but fuck you, I enjoy playing him. But nonetheless, that's pretty much else to say about the Huntress. Other than that, she's a very solid and powerful killer. And that's pretty much else to say about her. Nonetheless, thank you, and I wish you the best. Now fuck off. Also, don't forget to subscribe, even though I hate saying that. But goodbye.